The promise was this: a single bomb into a pickle barrel from 20,000 feet. The reality, in actual combat, was a 1.2% chance. On this gamble, the United States spent $1.5 billion, rivaling the cost of the entire Manhattan Project. This is the story of the Norden, how a miracle weapon became a catastrophe, and why the myth survived long after the data proved it wrong. To understand this failure, you must first understand the doctrine. In the 1930s, air power theorists believed the future of war was daylight strategic bombing. The idea was that fleets of high-altitude bombers could fly without fighter escorts, protected by their own machine guns, and surgically destroy enemy factories, crippling a nation's ability to wage war. But from 25,000 feet, hitting a target the size of a factory was nearly impossible. A falling bomb follows a ballistic arc, affected by the plane's speed, altitude, and wind. Let's be clear about the physics. To hit a factory, the bombardier had to release the bomb miles before they were over it. A 5-mile-per-hour error in wind estimation could miss the target by 600 feet. The human brain couldn't do this. The Army needed a brain, a mechanical brain. They found it in Carl Norden, a brilliant, eccentric Dutch engineer. He wanted to create a sight so accurate, it would make precision bombing a reality. His solution was a 50-pound marvel of gyroscopes, motors, gears, and a telescope. It was, in effect, the world's first analog fire control computer. Carl Norden wasn't just brilliant, he was obsessed. He had the ego of a prophet. He genuinely believed his sight would make war too terrible to wage, that pinpoint accuracy would force nations to abandon conflict entirely. He was also paranoid. He refused to patent the device because patents were public. When army generals visited his factory, he made them wear canvas hoods over their heads. Why? Because he was terrified the army would steal his unique manufacturing methods and hand them to his competitors. This wasn't military protocol. This was Carl Norden's personal crusade. To understand the genius of this device, imagine the problem. A bomber moves in 3 dimensions: pitch, roll, and yaw. The Norden used a gyroscope spinning at 7,200 RPM to create an artificial horizon that stayed perfectly level, no matter how the plane bucked. But the real magic was the connection. Through the PDI system, the sight didn't just tell the pilot where to go. Through a series of servo motors, the sight physically turned the bomber. The bombardier became the pilot. It was fly-by-wire technology, built entirely with gears, before the first transistor was ever invented. The bombardier would input the altitude, speed, lock the telescope. From that moment, the Norden took control of the plane via the autopilot, calculating the exact millisecond to release the payload. The technology was so advanced, it remained classified until 1960. The Army Air Forces bought into the myth completely. And it wasn't just a myth, it was a choice. There was a competing sight, the Sperry S-1, which performed similarly. But the Army command favored Norden's perfectionism. The Norden was chosen. They built entire training schools dedicated to it. Bombardier cadets were treated like a secret priesthood, forced to study the complex device in locked rooms, using wooden mock-ups for fear of the real one being seen. The secrecy wasn't just a rule, it was a religion. Every cadet had to sign an oath. It read, "I will safeguard the sight at all costs. If I am forced to land in enemy territory, my first duty will be to destroy the sight with gunfire." They didn't joke around. The standard issue Colt M1911 pistol given to bombardiers wasn't for fighting Germans. It was given to them to shoot the Norden bombsight's critical parts, to prevent the technology from falling into Nazi hands. They carried the sight to their planes in locked bags, and it was often equipped with a small thermite charge to melt it into slag in case of a crash. The pickle barrel myth was born, and in 1942, America sent its B-17 flying fortresses into the skies over Germany, confident that the Norden would end the war. The results were catastrophic. First, the theory of self-defending bombers was proven fatally wrong. German fighters tore through the unescorted formations. Luftwaffe pilots quickly discovered the B-17's weakness. They didn't attack from behind. They developed a terrifying tactic called 12 o'clock high. They attacked head-on. With a closing speed of 500 miles per hour, the German fighters aimed specifically for the glass nose of the bomber, killing the bombardier and destroying the Norden site first. Inside the unpressurized cabins, the temperature dropped to minus 40 degrees. Blood would freeze instantly, clogging oxygen masks. This wasn't surgical warfare. It was a slaughterhouse in the stratosphere. The most brutal proof came on October 14, 1943, Black Thursday. The mission was to destroy the ball-bearing factories at Schweinfurt. The unescorted B-17s flew into a buzzsaw. 60 bombers and 600 men were lost in a single afternoon. Worse, post-mission analysis showed the factories were only lightly damaged. The self-defending bomber was a myth. But even for the bombers that made it to the targets, the precision was nowhere to be found. The skies over industrial Germany were not clear. They were filled with clouds, smoke, fog, and a storm of anti-aircraft flak. The Norden's telescope needed a clear, visual lock on the target for at least 60 seconds. This final run was the core of the problem. For 60 seconds, the Norden's autopilot was flying the plane. They became a perfect, predictable target. It was a 60-second suicide run. Here's what a Luftwaffe pilot, Johannes Steinhoff, wrote in his diary. The Americans kept flying in perfect formation, straight and level for a full minute before releasing their bombs. We couldn't believe it. It was like they were committing suicide for the sake of a machine. Our orders were simple. Kill the bombardier, destroy the glass nose. After that, the plane was just a flying coffin. On 9 out of 10 missions, bombardiers couldn't even see the target. They were forced to either drop their bombs on instrument over the general area or not drop them at all. In 1943, the Army quietly analyzed the data. The pickle barrel myth evaporated. From 20,000 feet, in real combat conditions, a 1.2% chance of hitting their target. The $1.5 billion miracle weapon was, statistically, a failure. But here's the strangest part. While American generals believed the myth, the enemy already knew the truth. Through a spy, Hermann Lang, they had the blueprints before 1940. They even captured a working site in 1942. Their analysis? It was brilliant, but hopelessly delicate and impractical. German bombardiers used the Luftwaffe 7. By 1944, the math was undeniable. To destroy a single German factory using precision methods required, on average, 9,000 bombs. That's 108 B-17s, risking 1,000 lives for one target. The generals realized they had a choice. Send 100 planes to maybe hit a factory, or send 300 planes to flatten the entire industrial district. The Norden's promise of efficiency had become a trap. So what actually won the air war? Two things. First was the arrival of the P-51 Mustang. This long-range fighter could finally escort the bombers, smashing the German fighter force. And second, a brutal, uncomfortable change in doctrine. If you can't hit a factory, you aim for the city it's in. The strategy shifted from precision bombing to area bombing or carpet bombing. Hundreds of bombers would drop thousands of bombs. This was the opposite of what Carl Norden had intended. His sight, designed for surgical precision, was now being used as a simple aiming tool for citywide destruction. This shift culminated in the Pacific. General Curtis LeMay, a brutal realist, faced 150 miles per hour jet streams over Japan that made the Norden completely useless. His solution was radical. He realized that at night, at low altitude, you don't need a computer to hit a city. You just need fire. He ordered the B-29s to strip everything to save weight for more incendiary bombs. They stripped the defensive guns, they stripped the armor, and they stripped the useless Norden sites. He sent his pilots in at 5,000 feet, defenseless, but heavy with napalm. He famously said, "I'm not going to bomb a single pickle barrel. I'm going to bomb the pickle factory. And the ultimate irony? Even when the Norden was used to drop the atomic bomb, it missed by 800 feet. It wasn't precision that won the war, it was brute force. So why did the army keep spending billions on it? This is the critical lesson. It was institutional inertia. The Army Air Forces had built their entire identity and their budget requests to Congress on the promise of precision daylight bombing. To admit the Norden was a failure was to admit their entire doctrine was wrong. It was easier to keep producing the myth. It was propaganda for the public. The Norden was a technological masterpiece, but in the cloudy, violent skies over Europe, that promise was a fantasy. The $1.5 billion quest for the pickle barrel was a failure. Victory was delivered by the P-51 Mustang and the brutal reality of carpet bombing. The sight became a museum piece. A $1.5 billion reminder that in war, an imperfect weapon you can actually use beats a perfect weapon you can't.